Throughout the long course of human history, never before have people felt so acutely the fragility of the world in which they live. Everything seems to exist in a constant state of movement, change, and uncertainty. What feels solid today may already be shaken tomorrow. What we once believed to be certain can suddenly become vague and unclear. The outer world is changing too quickly, while the human mind has not yet learned how to adapt. It is precisely in the gap between these two rhythms that anxiety arises. We wake up each day carrying countless unanswered questions. Will our work remain stable? Where are our relationships heading? Health, the future, society, nature, all of them contain elements that we cannot fully control. Modern human beings are surrounded by information, yet lack a sense of inner refuge. Constantly connected, yet rarely truly at peace. Never before has the search for inner calm become such an urgent need. Yet, in the midst of an uncertain world, what causes human suffering is not so much the external changes themselves, but the way our minds respond to them. When the world trembles, the mind trembles along with it. When things no longer unfold as we wish, fear begins to take over. We fear loss, we fear change, we fear a future that does not resemble what we hoped for. And from that fear, we unconsciously seek something to cling to, clinging to a false sense of stability, clinging to what is familiar, clinging to the feeling of control. But here lies the paradox: the tighter we try to hold on, the more uneasy we become. The more we seek certainty from the outside, the emptier we feel within. Like trying to stand firm in a rushing current by resisting it, we quickly become exhausted. Perhaps the problem is not that the world is too uncertain, but that we have grown accustomed to living with the illusion that everything should remain stable according to our wishes. From ancient times, Buddhism has looked directly at this very nature of life. It neither avoids nor denies it, nor does it attempt to beautify it. Impermanence is not a curse, but a fundamental truth of existence. Everything that arises will change. All phenomena come and go. When we resist this truth, suffering appears. When we learn to see it clearly and accept it, another door begins to open. Peace, as it is commonly understood, is often mistaken for the absence of difficulties. We think that only when everything is stable, when life is calm, when there are no disruptions, can we feel at ease. But reality shows that even the most seemingly stable periods can still be filled with anxiety. And times of great turbulence, if the mind is steady enough, can instead become places of deep refuge. True peace is not a circumstance, but a state of mind. It does not depend on whether the world changes or not, but on whether we truly understand ourselves and understand life. When the mind no longer chases the fears of the future, nor is pulled back by regrets of the past, then right in the present moment, stillness begins to emerge. In an uncertain world, seeking peace does not mean running away from reality. On the contrary, it is a journey of turning back to face ourselves, our anxieties, our desires, our unconscious reactions operating within the mind. Only when we are mindful enough to recognize what is happening inside can we pause, take a deep breath, and stop being swept away by the waves outside. Perhaps the question is no longer, how can the world become more stable, but rather, how can my mind stop being shaken when the world changes? When this question is asked with sincerity, the journey back to peace truly begins. And from that place, in the midst of life's uncertainties, another kind of peace, deeper, quieter, and more resilient, gradually reveals itself. Not a peace that comes from everything going our way, but a peace that arises from understanding, acceptance, and mindfulness. A peace that does not require the world to be perfect, only that the mind no longer resists. That is the path we will walk together, the path of finding inner refuge within a world that is always changing. When we begin to look more deeply into the uncertainty of life, a truth gradually becomes clear: what exhausts us is not change itself, but our resistance to change. The human mind tends to seek fixed points of support, while the very nature of life is constant movement. This mismatch creates a subtle inner tension, like trying to keep balance on ground that is always shaking. From a young age, we are taught that we must plan, control, and predict the future in order to feel safe. Yet life rarely unfolds according to the script we design. When reality fails to meet our expectations, the mind begins to lose its stability. Anxiety arises not because something bad has already happened, but because we continually imagine scenarios that have not yet occurred. The mind lives more in the future than in the present, and from there, peace is gradually lost. Buddhism calls this state an unanchored mind. A mind that is constantly fluctuating, chasing gain and loss, success and failure, safety and danger. When conditions are favorable, we feel temporarily at ease. When conditions change, we immediately become unsettled. But if peace exists only when everything goes according to our wishes, then it is not true peace, but merely temporary comfort. Mindfulness begins with recognizing this. There is no need to change the world immediately, nor to force ourselves to be calm. It is enough to be aware, what is happening in the mind right now? Is there fear? Is there unease? Is there a desire for something other than what is present? When we dare to look directly at these inner movements, they begin to lose their power over us. Stability does not come from eliminating negative emotions, but from the ability to be with them without being carried away. Like sitting quietly on the riverbank watching the water flow, we do not need to jump in to fight the current, nor do we need to stop the water. We simply observe, and within that observation, the mind gradually becomes quieter. One of the deeper reasons people struggle to find peace amid uncertainty is the tendency to over-identify with thoughts. We believe that every thought appearing in the mind is the truth. In reality, most thoughts are merely conditioned reactions, formed from accumulated memories, experiences, and fears. When external circumstances shift, these old layers of thinking automatically arise, painting anxious visions of the future. When we learn to separate ourselves from this stream of thoughts, not by suppressing them, but by observing them, a new space opens up. In that space, we realize that we are not our thoughts. Nor are we our fears. We are the one who sees them. And that simple awareness alone brings a very deep sense of freedom. Peace in an uncertain world is not a state where problems no longer exist, but a state where the mind no longer panics in the face of problems. When the mind is steady enough, change is no longer a threat, but a reminder of the impermanent nature of life. Instead of resisting, we learn to listen. Instead of running away, we turn back. We return to the breath. We return to the body that is present. We return to this moment, the only place where life is truly happening. When the mind dwells in the present, worries about the future temporarily settle, not because the future has become safe, but because we are no longer living in imagination. Gradually, we realize that uncertainty is not the enemy. It only becomes frightening when we try to control it. When we accept that nothing is certain, a paradox occurs, the mind becomes lighter. No longer straining to keep everything the same. No longer constantly preparing for the worst. We begin to live more gently, more flexibly, and from that, peace arises naturally. Buddhism does not teach people to escape life, but to live fully within its very fragility. When we understand that everything can change, we stop taking the present for granted. We begin to cherish each ordinary moment more deeply. A quiet morning. A deep breath. A moment when the mind is not being pulled anywhere. In an uncertain world, peace is not a distant destination, but the ability to stop right where we are. When we no longer chase the idea that life must be different in order for us to feel at ease, then even within imperfect circumstances, a sense of inner abiding begins to form. And perhaps that is the foundation of lasting peace, not one that depends on conditions, not one that relies on the future, but one that is nurtured through deep mindfulness in each moment just as It is, when we pause long enough to listen to our own unease, we begin to realize that our deepest anxiety does not come from external circumstances, but from a sense of uncertainty about ourselves. We fear that we are not strong enough to face change. We fear that we will not be able to endure it if things do not unfold as we hope. It is this quiet doubt that drives us to constantly seek support outside, while what we truly need lies deep within. Inner trust is not blind self-reassurance, but understanding forged through mindful experience. When we have repeatedly witnessed the mind arise and pass away, emotions come and go, suffering appear and then dissolve, we begin to understand that we have the capacity to move through upheaval without being broken by it. That wisdom is not loud, but it is steady. The uncertainty of the world is like waves. If we stand on the shore with a panicked mind, every wave appears threatening. But if we learn how to swim, learn how to relax the body and move with the rhythm of the water, the waves are no longer enemies. They still exist, but they no longer have the power to drown us. Peace does not lie in a calm sea, but in the ability not to panic amid rough waters. Letting go, in the deeper sense of Buddhist teaching, is not abandoning responsibility or becoming indifferent to life. Letting go is letting go of identification. We stop identifying ourselves with outcomes, with images of the future, with a self that must be absolutely secure. When we are no longer burdened by the need to protect a fragile ego, the mind naturally becomes lighter. Many people think that letting go means loss. In reality, letting go is an opening. An opening to flexibility. An opening to adaptability. An opening to living truthfully with what is, rather than living in an endless battle with reality. When we no longer resist the current, the energy trapped in tension is gradually released. In an uncertain world, wisdom does not come from knowing everything in advance, but from the ability to remain still with the unknown. The human mind is deeply afraid of the empty space of uncertainty. We always want answers, we want guarantees. But it is precisely this haste that causes us to lose the capacity to listen deeply. When we dare to stay with the question, without rushing to find a solution, a new stillness begins to take shape. From that stillness, we see the world through a different lens. We no longer see only threats, but also opportunities for growth. We no longer see only loss, but also liberation from outdated structures that no longer serve us. Uncertainty, when viewed through wisdom, becomes an invitation to live more mindfully and more truthfully. Deep stability does not come from avoiding fear, but from understanding its true nature. Fear always says, if this happens, you will not be okay. But through the practice of mindfulness, we gradually realize that we have already passed through many difficult moments, and we are still here. This realization does not make life less uncertain, but it makes the mind less panicked. When we are no longer driven by fear, our decisions become clearer. We act not from defensive reflexes, but from awareness. We no longer rush to escape, but are calm enough to choose an appropriate path. It is this calmness that creates a very different kind of peace, the peace of one who is no longer running away. Buddhism reminds us that everything is arising and passing away in each moment. When we truly see this, we no longer demand that life stand still so that we can feel safe. We learn to walk alongside change. And in each mindful step, a quiet trust is nurtured, the trust that no matter how circumstances shift, we can always return to the breath, to awareness, to ourselves. In a world of constant change, perhaps the greatest gift we can offer ourselves is not certainty, but the ability to abide. To abide in the body. To abide in the mind. To abide in the present. When there is a place to return to, the world, no matter how uncertain, no longer feels like an absolute threat. And from that place of abiding, we begin to live not with the hope that everything will be okay, but with the understanding that we can be okay even when everything is not. This understanding is the source of Lasting peace, a peace that is not shaken by external change. When the journey of seeking peace reaches a deeper level, we begin to realize that what matters is no longer what more to do, but what to let go of. Not letting go of the world, but letting go of the layers of expectations, judgments, and unconscious reactions that we have carried for many years. It is these layers that prevent us from truly touching the present moment, even though the present is always there, quietly waiting. We often think that peace will come once all problems are solved. But the longer we live, the more clearly we see that life never runs out of problems. Only the way we face them changes. When the mind keeps searching for a perfect ending point, we live in a constant state of waiting. And within that waiting, life passes by without our full presence. When we accept that uncertainty is an inseparable part of life, a very deep relaxation begins to emerge. Not because everything has become safe, but because we stop demanding that life guarantee our safety. We no longer place conditions on peace. We no longer say, only when things are stable will I feel at ease. We begin to feel at ease right in the midst of instability. That sense of ease is not loud. It does not make us indifferent or distant. On the contrary, it allows us to be more fully present with whatever is happening. When fear no longer occupies all the inner space, we begin to see more clearly the fragile beauty of life. A quiet moment. A sincere gaze. A deep breath without burden. In the Buddha's teaching, wisdom does not lie in knowing much, but in seeing clearly. Seeing clearly the arising of the mind. Seeing clearly the impermanence of emotions. Seeing clearly how we create suffering by resisting what cannot be avoided. When we see clearly, we do not need to try to become peaceful. Peace appears naturally as a consequence of understanding. There is a stage on the path of awakening when we stop seeking answers from the outside. We no longer ask what life should give us, but turn back to listen to how we are living. When we truly listen, we realize that we have been moving too fast, thinking too much, and placing too much weight on our own fragile shoulders. From that listening, a different rhythm of life gradually takes shape. Slower. Deeper. Less reactive. We no longer need to have opinions about everything, nor do we need certainty about the future. We allow ourselves not to know. And that very permission frees us from the pressure to control life. Uncertainty, when seen through the lens of mindfulness, is no longer a dark space to avoid, but a space for growth. It teaches us humility before life, softness in the face of change, and greater kindness toward ourselves. When the illusion of absolute control falls away, we begin to live more honestly with the limits of being human. At this point, peace is no longer just an emotion, but a foundation. Whether emotions come or go, whether circumstances are favorable or adverse, there is a part of us that remains quietly observing. That part is not swept away by the waves. It does not need to prove anything. It simply abides, steady and still. From this foundation, we begin to meet the world with a different attitude. Less defensive. Less closed off by fear of being hurt. We understand that being hurt is part of living, but it does not define the whole of who we are. When we no longer run away from suffering, we no longer fear life. In an uncertain world, deep peace is not something achieved once and held forever. It is a repeated returning. Returning to the breath when the mind is unsettled. Returning to the body when the mind wanders. Returning to awareness when we are carried away by fear. Each return is like placing a small stone, gradually building a resilient inner strength. And then, a very gentle moment occurs. We realize that we are no longer searching for peace. Not because we have enough of it, but because we understand that peace was never far away. It has always been here, obscured by layers of anxiety, craving, and resistance. As those layers thin, peace naturally reveals itself. From there, the journey comes to a close in a natural way, without climax, without assertion. What remains is a quiet understanding. In a world that is always changing, what matters is not making life more certain, but making the mind spacious enough to embrace uncertainty. And from that very openness, the end of the journey, not as a closing conclusion, but as an opening door, is waiting to be entered. I in the end, as all words gradually fall silent, what remains is not a complete answer, but a silence full of meaning. Within that silence, we no longer try to understand life through concepts, nor do we seek peace as something that must be achieved. We simply are here, with the breath flowing in and out, with the quiet rhythm of life, with ourselves just as we are. Peace, it turns out, is not a reward for those who live correctly, nor is it the result of avoiding uncertainty. Peace appears when we no longer place conditions on it. When we stop waiting for the world to become more predictable. When we no longer postpone inner abiding with promises of some secure future. In this very moment, even as the outer world continues to change, the mind can choose to pause. An uncertain world is not a failure of order, but a reminder of the living nature of life itself. Everything moves, arises, and passes away. When we no longer resist that rhythm, a deep weariness begins to loosen. We do not need to always be strong. We do not need to know everything in advance. We only need enough mindfulness to return when the mind begins to wander. Perhaps after this video comes to an end, your life will still hold unresolved worries and unease that you cannot yet name. But if there is one small thing you can carry with you, let it be this understanding: you do not need to wait for everything to be stable in order to be at peace. You can begin right now, by slowing down one breath, by allowing yourself not to know, by releasing the pressure to control life. Peace does not erase sadness, but it gives sadness a safe space to be seen. Peace does not eliminate fear, but it no longer allows fear to take the wheel. When the mind has a place to return to, the waves still come, but they no longer overwhelm us as before. This journey does not require perfection. It only asks for honesty, honesty with what is happening in the mind, honesty with our own limits, and enough patience to return again and again. Each return, no matter how small, is a step toward inner freedom. If, while listening, there was a moment when you felt a little lighter, a little calmer, then perhaps you touched what we have been pointing toward together. And if you wish to continue nurturing that sense of abiding, feel free to leave a comment sharing your experience. It does not need to be perfect, only honest. Your sharing can become a support for yourself and for others walking the same path. If content like this offers you a space to pause and breathe, consider subscribing to the channel to continue the journey together. Each video is an invitation to return to mindfulness, to a peace that does not depend on circumstances, to the capacity to live deeply within a world that is always changing. Life will not become less uncertain, but the mind can become more spacious. And within that spaciousness, peace is no longer something to search for, but something that can be touched at any moment, whenever we remember to return.